I lingered round them under that benign sky, watched the moths fluttering among the heath and harebells. I listened to the soft wind breathing through the grass, and wondered how anyone could ever imagine unquiet slumbers for the sleepers in that quiet earth. That is the final line of Emily Bronte's masterpiece, Wuthering Heights, one of the most sublime works in the English language. And it got me thinking, do people really see death as a negative thing? Do people really want to avoid it and actually can't sleep at night because they fear it so much? Or is it just a social construction? It's probably a social construction, the fear of death. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a lot of, you know, very, very grave implications on day to day life, but it is something to do. We don't need to be afraid of dying. Why am I not afraid of dying? I know I'm only 14, and objectively speaking, I should have a lot of time to live, a lot of time to live more than I have currently. But I know that it's subjectively speaking, I might die next second. Why am I not afraid of death? Why shouldn't you be afraid of death? Well, in my opinion, death is the logical conclusion, the conclusive finale to life. So resisting death would kind of be resisting life itself. And one of the greatest remedies to the fear of death is something that Epicurus said, that death and life cannot exist in the same world. So when you're alive, death doesn't exist, and when you're dead, life doesn't exist. That's sublime. I love it. But instead of actually taking shortcuts to the fear of death, let's just look at it and see it as something that is ever present. The Grim Reaper holding his spade, I don't know what it's called, his hoe, I don't know how it's called, in front of us or behind us, invisibly, eternally, ever presently, from the moment we are first born to or up until our last breath. We know it's the Grim Reaper is there. We know that we are basically programmed to die. We know this. How can we not fear it? How can we actually look at death and see it as something that enriches our life, not something that limits us, like the nihilists believe? How can we be more optimistic about death? Because, in my opinion, just as Emily Bronte is kind of alluding to with that final line, death should be a quiet slumber, quiet conclusion to our adventure, to life in general. Without death, we would be immortal. And from a philosophical and from a philosophical perspective, that is arrogant and very illogical. And from a biological perspective, it is completely irrational. Let's say the harder one, the philosophical interpretation first. From a religious perspective, if you're Christian or Muslim, Jewish, whatever, it is kind of arrogant to think that you can be a divine being that lives forever. No, because you're mortal. Death is something that in the first place kind of humbles you as well. You say, okay, I'm not actually made to live forever, because why the hell would I live forever? Why would mankind try to sustain me forever? Why should I be a calm resident of this earth for more than, I don't know, 150 years, 1,000 years, whatever? Why should I be immortal, divine, eternal? Why? And from a biological perspective, of course, it's irrational. And from a moral perspective, philosophical moral perspective, it doesn't really accomplish anything. Why would you be afraid of death when you know that, when you don't know nothing about it? Yeah, we're afraid of uncertainty. What happens after death? Well, if we adopt a certain philosophy that says that we can't go to hell and burn for eternity, well, that might help because we're not afraid of life ending in something worse. We might be afraid of the people that remain on Earth missing us and us not being able to help them. We might, when we see death firsthand through grief, we might feel a bit of a selfish suffering because we can't actually see that person again. But at the end of the day, isn't this what mankind, humans' existence is made for? It's a story. A story needs to end. A story that doesn't have a good conclusion, that is always going to be rewritten and rewritten and rewritten and written, is not a good story. What happens with, I'll take the goddamn degenerate example for this, with Netflix series or with shows in general, when people start doing season 12, season 13, season 16, 20, 30, like what happens with The Simpsons? It has been on air for I don't know how many decades. They don't kill it. It doesn't die. They keep animating episodes and now it is becoming more and more hated. Of course, that small little golden age of any show might be something that touches our hearts. It might be something that actually inspires us or creates good memories. But once it does not die, it kind of gets annoying. It gets really, really annoying, doesn't it? Why would it be different with human beings? Would you like it if you had an immortal family member? Probably not. When it comes to everything, when it comes to every single relationship in life, there is a moment where you kind of think, oh, I wouldn't like them to live forever, to always be present and present and present and present, because it's also kind of a part of human evolution, grief, of human quality, because the more, as Proust said, and Proust was kind of a mad lad, but I'll quote him, happiness is playtime for the soul. I don't know the quote in French, but grief is what really strengthens it. Yeah, there might be truth in that. Don't be radical with it. There's certainly truth in that. So the next time you actually feel fearful of death, think, what would you be without it? See it as something humbling. See it as something that makes you human in the first place. Because a life without death is like a TV show that never dies, that never ends, that is never concluded, and nobody likes that. And what would you do with infinite life? There are a lot of short stories and movies and pieces of art, paintings, whatever, that kind of interpret the chaos of eternity. Heaven and hell are flawed things, like a place where you infinitely stay happy, remain happy, and a place where you're infinitely tortured. They're flawed ideas because it's infinite. Why infinite? It needs to have an end. Just as it has a start, it needs to have an end. And a life without death isn't life, isn't even a life. It's a poorly written story. So send this to someone you love, and I'll see you later.